Hello everyone, we are back again with a lecture from home, and this is our second lecture. In the last class we tried to look at the definitions of intelligence. We gave a background. We also looked at the intelligence process, the intelligence cycle, some of its component parts, after which I told you guys we're going to proceed to the sources of intelligence. Now, I tried to give you a brief breakdown of some of the sources as we were talking about the intelligence cycle, but then that is not to say that's detailed enough. Now, basically, we know you don't expect lecture videos to be as interactive as classroom lectures, but then, in line with what is going on globally, we have to manage. And in as much as there is no feedback from students, instant feedback, I also expect you to drop your questions and your comments in our group chats or in the comment section below here on YouTube or wherever you're having access to this video from, whatever platform. That being said, I would like us to look at some of those sources today, the sources of intelligence. What are those sources that we explore in order to obtain actionable intelligence? Now, for the purpose of this class, we're going to be talking about, there are so many sources of intelligence, but, we might not be able to go through all of them, but I would give you guys the most important ones that I feel are necessary and, in line with the sensitivity of such topics. We try as much as possible to be, discreet as to what we teach, especially in such a public platform. Now, for the purpose of this class, we are considering human intelligence, signals intelligence, imagery intelligence, geospatial intelligence, as well as open source intelligence. Now, basically, human source intelligence, is also called the mother of all intelligence. Reason being that it is probably the oldest form of intelligence practice. Now, significantly, all intelligence collection activities are directly or indirectly coordinated and conducted by humans. Ask me how? As we proceed, you would realize, or you would agree with me, that all other forms of sources of intelligence, there must be human participation. Just like we have a lot of robots today, a lot of technological equipments that are operating on AI, artificial intelligence, but somehow a human being sits down to configure and program all those things. So human intelligence as a source of intelligence simply refers to the collection of information from human sources. This involves the use of spies, intelligence gotten from interviews or interrogations of witnesses or interrogation of suspects. Now, human intelligence is often underrated, if you ask me, and probably has to the complexities in the contemporary intelligence environment. Same applies to all sectors of life. We have machines and computers replacing the functions of man in industries today. Same applies to the world of intelligence today. In the good old days, spies were sent on missions and they used manual means to collect and transmit intelligence. Whereas today, all you need to do is sit down from behind your computer and press some buttons or send a drone to do your dirty work. Now, is that a good or a bad development? I leave you to argue that. But basically, human intelligence, the use of spies, the use of human beings to conduct, surveillance operations. If you interrogate a suspect and you get information from such a suspect, that is human intelligence. You interview someone, you get information. You get an eyewitness, you get information from that. All those are forms of human intelligence. Now, a good example of human intelligence, and that's probably where it started as well. If you read your Bible very well, you would know the story of Joshua and Caleb and the 12 spies. If you remember, they were sent to the land of Canaan to, go and spy on the land by Moses. Now, that was an intelligence requirement given to them by Moses, and they decided to, go about it the human intelligence way. They went to the land of Canaan, 12 of them. They, they surveyed the land. They came back to Moses with feedback that the operation you sent us on, about 10 of them, I think, they said it's a difficult one. It's a difficult task. We might not be able to, defeat them. They are very strong people. He came back with fruits to prove to him that they were actually there. Now, I don't want to go biblical about it. I know most of you know the story. But then that is where we can trace the, history of espionage and human intelligence. It is as old as, man himself. Now, if you also have time, you can look at Mark and Molly Maguire's, the story of Mark and Molly Maguire's. You can read up on some spies that operated during the Cold War era. The Cold War happened just after it started just after the Cold War, after the World War II rather. The Mark and Molly Maguire's, and then the Cold War spies. We have the likes of Aldrich Ames, the likes of Robert Hansen, and the likes of Dmitry Polyakov. There are lots of them. Some were for the KGB, some were for the CIA. So put simply, I think you can have an idea of what human intelligence entails. Use of spies to gather actionable intelligence or any form of activity that man engages in to acquire information. Now, the second one we're considering today is imagery intelligence. Some texts refer to it as photo intelligence. I explained the other day that this is basically pictorial data, images. Now, this is said to have started since World War I and World War II, where both sides took photographs from airplanes. I wonder the resolution of such photographs. But then, in those days, those were, actionable, should I say, information or intelligence. They captured data, photographic data. And but today we have all kinds of, unmanned aerial vehicles, UAV satellites, drones, and even CCTV cameras. They are all used in capturing graphic images for strategic or operational purposes. Today, if Boko Haram had, if the Nigerian army had, enough imagery intelligence and geospatial intelligence, I tell you, Boko Haram would be history. Going into the battlefield without imagery intelligence or geospatial intelligence in this contemporary, intelligence era or contemporary operational environment is as good as going in blind. That's the reality of it. Anyway, I remember saying last class that there's a relationship between imagery intelligence and geospatial intelligence. In fact, by my own argument, I would prefer imagery intelligence comes under geospatial intelligence, but then they are divided in text because they are not actually the same thing, but they have some technical similarities. One emerged from the other. Now, basically what I mean by, graphic images for strategic or operational purposes, the difference is clear. Now, we could capture images about an enemy zone and use it for immediate military operations, for attacks and all of that. That's for operational purposes. We're going in there, or we're already in the field, for instance, we're in Sambisa Forest exchanging fire with, the terrorists, and we're given imagery intelligence from our drone that is up there. It gives us a picture of where they are. Go so place, go this place, go that place. You find their men here, you find their men there, you find their arsenal here, all those are information we could get from imagery intelligence, pictures. We use them immediately in the battlefield. That's for operational purpose. But the one we have for strategic purpose is the one we're not using immediately. We probably gather a lot of images to make sense of their movements around there, where they keep equipment. It could even be motion images, not still images. There's a difference between still images, that's pictures, and videos, motion imagery. We could capture videos every day, getting their routine activities, what time they come in, what time they leave, all those would give us a clue, as to how to plan strategic operations. Now, that kind of graphic image is for strategic purpose, not for tactical operations. Now, geospatial intelligence is next on my list, and for geospatial intelligence, like I explained the other day, is simply geospatial data, or information about the geography of an area, or you say geographic information. Geospatial, let me look at the etymology. Now, if you say, first of all, etymology means the study of how words are being formed. Geoint, geospatial intelligence. The word geo from geography and spatial, space. So every kind of information you gather about the surface of the earth, the geography, be it the topography, the terrain, the weather, the climate, everything you gather about geography, every kind of information, be it distance, it's all geospatial intelligence. And geospatial intelligence is data gathered from satellite or aerial photography, mapping tools, remote sensing technologies, and so on and so forth. Now, remote sensing technologies, all the drones and satellites we're talking about, they are all remote sensing technologies. You gather information remotely without actually having direct contact with the source of the information. If you're capturing data from a satellite that is thousands of miles up in the universe, you're not having direct contact. Now, for geospatial intelligence, there are areas we need to consider. First of all, we have remote sensing, which I just explained. Then GPS. The question of GPS, global positioning system. We have GPS trackers today everywhere. Most of you buy cars and you put GPS trackers in them, such that at any point in time your car is stolen, or you want to keep tabs on your child or your wife, you just click on the link and you find where your car is. Those are geospatial intelligence components. They are all tools that are given to us by geospatial intelligence. They are all components of geospatial intelligence. We have field maps. You're going for an operation in, I think I should stop using Sambisa Forest. You're going for an operation in, say, Onitsha, and you're given a map of where you're going for that operation, a field map. These are the number of entrances, these are the number of exits. That's a field. You have a map, a working map, for that field operation that you're going for. We have satellite imagery, which I have already explained. We have radar, altimeters, radio detection and ranging. I will take time to explain radio frequency and radio modulation when I get to signals intelligence. We have the LIDAR, the light detection and ranging. Now, what LIDAR normally does is it's just like if you've heard about laser rangefinder. Now, when light travels from point A to point B, it doesn't just, when you on your flashlight and it hits the wall, maybe 100 meters ahead of you, it doesn't mean it got there in exactly the second that you turned on the torchlight. It took a particular time, maybe milliseconds. Now, what LIDAR technology does, it uses, the light technology to detect distance and time. For you to better understand the usefulness of the radar altimeters, laser range finders, or the LIDAR, just assume I am positioned in my base. Say I am serving with the Joint Task Force in Jacana or in Burma, or the Joint Tactical Units, anyone, and suddenly we're about to be attacked by an F-16, which we believe belongs to the terrorists, God forbid. Now, in such a situation, and I have a laser rangefinder, for instance, I quickly pick up my laser rangefinder. I do some pointing and analysis, and then I'm seeing a range of maybe 1,000 meters. And in that kind of situation, you go pick up your AK-47 rifle. You're just a joke. Simply because the standard a standard AK-47 rifle has an effective range of 400 meters. Now you're aiming at 1,000 meters, an F-16 at 1,000 meters. Mind you, by the time you calculate the wind velocity, the trajectory, all those things, I don't want to go into details too much, but I've already mentioned trajectory. Trajectory is the flight path of a projectile. The projectile is your bullet. Now, considering the speed of an F-16 jet, considering the wind velocity and all of that, what are your chances of shooting down an F-16 jet with an AK-47 rifle within a 1,000 mile, 1,000 meters distance? So you use these equipments, to gather actionable intelligence. Beyond precision attacks, you can use them for estimative judgments, in emergency tactical situations, such as in the case I just cited as an example. Now, just like the laser range finder. Now, if you've played with a laser light growing up, you know that, or if a sniper rifle that uses a laser light. When they point at night, when they point a sniper rifle on a target, there's actually a red light, a very red sharp light. That's a laser light. Now, a laser range finder is a range finder which uses a laser beam, that light, to determine the distance to or from an object. Now, it operates using a kind of technology that calculates, the time it takes the laser beam, to travel to hit that object and bounce back. The same thing with, the leader. It calculates that reflection. The reflection of that laser beam is what, is used to calculate the distance. If, for instance, I'm standing in point A and I point a laser rangefinder at maybe an aircraft or a drone, to calculate the kind of weapon I probably need to target such, should I say, an unmanned aerial vehicle. A laser rangefinder would calculate the time it takes the laser beam to hit, the pan of that drone or that aircraft. The time it takes that beam to travel there and bounce back to the laser rangefinder. That is what it uses in automatically calculating the distance. Also, it's similar to radar altimeters, but in the case of radar altimeters, it's radio detection and ranging. It's basically an instrument used to calculate distance between two objects as well. But in this case, the distance between probably an aircraft or unmanned aerial vehicle to the ground or any given target. For instance, if you're flying a plane and there's another plane that is probably an enemy plane, you want to shoot it down, you want to know the risk level. It's close to you enough that if you shoot it down, you also stand the risk of going down with it. If you're flying a jet and another jet is above yours, you have to weigh out options to shoot it down because you also stand the risk. So radar altimeters, radio detection and ranging, would use the radio frequencies and radio ranges to find out or to give you the exact distance between one object and the other. Very important geospatial intelligence tool is, the seismometer. Now, if you study geography, I'm sure you must have read about seismic waves. Now, when there is, I'm just trying to give you guys a background of how seismometers, could come in operations. Now, if you know how earthquakes happen, you know that after an earthquake there are seismic waves. The pattern in which the vibration goes. There are different kinds of seismic waves. There could be the bumpy one. There could be the back and forth vibration. There are, I think, three kinds of seismic waves, but that's not the focus anyway. A seismometer is simply an equipment that it measures vibration on the surface of the earth. Now, how does that come into military operations or geospatial intelligence rather? If you say plant a seismometer in Sambisa forest, or I said I will stop using Sambisa forest. You plant a seismometer in an area where you suspect terrorist activities, and you go back to your base. Suddenly, you're receiving beeps from your seismograph. So seismometer can give you that kind of geospatial information as in form of vibration, and we can also look at okay, I've talked about LIDAR. So those are some of the tools that are at the disposal of military commanders or battlefield commanders or intelligence operatives, any name you call it. You know, those are geospatial intelligence tools and remote sensing tools. And the kind of data you get from those tools, we can categorize them into distance, topography, the terrain, the weather, the demographics, hazards, the vegetation of the area. All of that fall under the category of geospatial intelligence. Back then when we were in class, I think introduction to, no, geographic intelligence or geospatial intelligence or geographic information system, one of those courses. And our lecturer asked, what's topography? Now everyone in the class knew what topography was, but nobody could put it in words. I quickly shouted the up and down of the surface of the earth. Yeah, he wasn't entirely wrong, but then that's an unprofessional way of putting it. Anyway, that's that for geospatial intelligence. I'm sure by now everyone understands what geospatial intelligence is all about. Now, so another very important source of intelligence is open source intelligence, OSINT. Now, like I said in the other class, this is a kind of source that is unrestricted. Access to open source information is unrestricted. It's open source. Your newspapers, your radio, your television, your radio stations, your television stations, your academic journals, conferences, and all of that. You might be surprised to hear that there are actually information there that are relevant to national security or that are relevant to your own intelligence requirement, your specific intelligence requirement. Remember we said there are two kinds of intelligence requirement, the priority or primary intelligence requirement and specific intelligence requirement. Now, say for instance, just to give an example, we have a requirement to search for, say, Chiroma Chukwuka Adekunle, that guy that writes WAEC every year. And suddenly, his daughter or his girlfriend or his relative posts pictures with him. And maybe in the picture, we cite the name of a hotel. When you pay attention to details, you find out a lot of things. Now, she is posting a picture with somebody that is wanted, probably unknown to her, or she feels, how would somebody even trace where they are? Now, if you've been to hotels that their fridge is labeled, their televisions are labeled, they brand all those things with their name, for security reasons. Now, in the picture, probably something shows in the background, and maybe as a DSS operative looking for Chiroma Chukwuka Adekunle, you cite that picture on Facebook. You quickly, do some graphic analysis. Now that's imagery intelligence you've gotten. How? Through open source. She just posted it on Facebook. You didn't have to go through the stress of going for covert operation, surveillance, and all of that. It's information that you got in open source. Now you go ahead and do some little graphic analysis and get some information. You get the name of the hotel, the address. Boom! You plan your operation and you go for arrest. That's one example. That's actually actionable intelligence, or at least potentially actionable intelligence. Also, researchers also give a lot of intel, either known to them or unknown to them. And sometimes we make some researches that have some sensitive topics. Say, for instance, I'm researching on sexual harassment in academic institutions, in tertiary institutions. and probably, I picked a university to study, a particular university, say Federal University of Zaria. There's no university like that now. I picked that university as my case study. And probably in my findings or in my questionnaire, as a detective or as an intelligence operative, you just realize that there's actually a high level of sexual harassment in this university. Now, mind you, sexual harassment is a crime. That's an intel for you to work on now, right? By, academic research, I have discovered intelligence, actionable intelligence, or intelligence worth exploring. Now, in the olden days when spies communicated in codes through newspapers, those were also some good sources of intel, open sources. When you would be sent on an operation and you want to, give feedback, and in those days they didn't have access to modern technologies as we do now. Now you just call your handler or your superior. you know a handler is someone who handles a spy. If you're a spy, the person you give feedback to, the person you report back to, is your handler. If you see in some movies, they sometimes put their drop would be probably a chair in a garden where you just go under the chair, you slot in something, that's the drop, or a dead drop. Same thing with the newspaper. You just look for a way to encrypt your information, put it in ciphers and publish it. Now, somebody working for the CIA could probably just have access to your routine and know that you go to the newspaper publishing company every Monday. Probably that's when you take information there for them to publish and for your organization to have access to it. The CIA operative intercepts that kind of information about your routine. What does he do? He looks for the information you're publishing every Monday, and he tries to decipher it. So that's all open source intelligence. Open source intelligence has to do with information gotten through open sources, unrestricted sources. I've given an example: the newspapers, the radio stations, the television stations, academic journals, social media platforms like the likes of Twitter, Facebook. They're all, open sources of information. For signals intelligence, SIGINT, simply it refers to the interception and decoding of electronic signals or radio signals. You intercept radio signals and you get information through that, and it can be traced to the World War II era. There was Operation Ultra. You can read up on that. The British intelligence came up with Operation Ultra during the World War II. In order to intercept communications of the other side, being Germany. Germany was their adversary, and more than radio signals, they were able to intercept printer signals. Imagine you're sitting in probably DSS headquarters and you're intercepting a printing machine of probably somebody in Onitsha market, those fraudulent printers that are not registered, probably printing for a terrorist organization or an insurgent group. That was what Operation Ultra was all about. The US also had Operation Magic. The Germans had the Enigma, and so on. Now, radio frequency, we make phone calls every day without knowing who intercepts. In those days, communications in the battlefield was usually made through radio. Apart from the battlefield, even communication generally through radio. Today we have phone calls. It operates basically on the same principle. Have you ever wondered how radios work? The same principles apply, to walkie-talkies. Only in the case of walkie-talkies, they are two-way channels, sort of. Whereas in the case of a radio, you can't talk back at a radio station. I'm talking about the broadcasting radios we listen to. Now, this information that we pass through whatever form of radio signals pass in form of what we call radio wave, electromagnetic wave. Now, what is a radio wave? A radio wave is simply an electromagnetic wave that is propagated or produced by an antenna on different frequencies. Now, if you've operated a walkie-talkie before, the two ends or more have to be on the same frequency to be able to communicate. Now, those frequencies are measured in megahertz or kilohertz. There is a limit to what I can teach or not teach you for security reasons. But when you tune into a radio station, for instance, and you hear 82.5 FM, it simply means that the frequency is oscillating at a frequency of 82,500,000 cycles or rounds per second. FM there means frequency modulated. Meanwhile, the AM, sometimes you hear 82.5 AM, 82.5 FM. The AM means amplitude modulated. Now, I let's not go into the science of all of that, but just so you know, if Boko boys were to have somehow have a modified radio frequency receiver that allows them to tune into the army frequency, that would be signals intelligence interception. But then it is highly unlikely. The Nigerian army communicates through a highly protected modulation, and also they change frequencies from time to time. So you don't see, forget what they show you in the movies. These things are not as easy as they make them look like in the movies. There are countermeasures that these agencies also put in place because they know about those loopholes. Now, these days we probably don't make use of walkie-talkies so much, but you'll be wondering, how can somebody intercept my phone calls? Now, a cell phone is basically, it operates just like I said earlier. It operates with the same principle as the walkie-talkies. Only we have it's open-ended on both sides. You can talk and talk back at the same time. Now, if you've been wondering how your calls pass through the other end, when you call somebody, your voice is being changed into electronic signals. Now, those electronic signals go to the nearest mast. You know what a mast is? Those long poles that they erect in your area. If you have also noticed, virtually all areas have those masts. Now, what they do is they've divided should I say the earth or every region into hexagons. You know what a hexagon is? It's a polygon. Uh, when you say hexagon, I think hexagon has 6 sides. Okay, so they've divided, say, Abuja into hexagons. For instance, I'm using the Federal Capital Territory for example. It has been divided into hexagons. Now, for each area, there is a mast that is covering that area to handle communications within that area. Now, when you make a call, say you're in Gwarimpa or you're in Wuse, your call is turned into electronic signal by your phone, and then it goes to the nearest mast. The nearest mast, now probably you're calling somebody in Sokoto, it sends it down to the nearest mast, in the area within which your recipient, that is the person receiving your call, within the area which the person resides. His own mast receives the call, sends it. All this happens within a matter of seconds. Sometimes you call somebody, before you know it's already ringing. It gets there, and it is also converted by his phone into voice from electronic signals. It's not your voice that flies in the air. These signals are signals we don't see, but they are flying up above our head every day. Now, interception comes in virtually on all ends. It's a possibility that from your phone someone is intercepting. The first thing I always tell my students is, as someone who studies intelligence, there's a conduct that is expected of you. Being conscious of all these things should make you, more careful of what you say, what you do. Now, you're making a phone call. You should know that there is a possibility, if you're a target or a likely target, someone could be intercepting your phone call. That's a violation of human rights anyway, but there are times when cases of national security supersede, fundamental human rights. Be you a terrorist or a wanted criminal, the agencies can, get some necessary permissions from the courts of law to have access to those kinds of information. Now, interception can be through your phone or through any of those channels, and that would be what signals intelligence. You know, the agencies use those interception of signals to get information when there is a high profile operation. That is that about signals intelligence. There are different modes and methods and should I say ways through which they carry out this signals interception. And that is not for us to teach. Probably when you join any of the agencies you would learn that there are different approaches. Common ones are the word based and the voice based. Now, should they have a sample of the voice of a terrorist, for instance, in those videos that they receive, all they need to do is, place a tap. It's like as those signals are flying, there is a device somewhere that is intercepting all the calls, but the device is not interested in whatever conversation you're having with your wife or your girlfriend or your boyfriend. As soon as it picks a voice pattern that is similar to that which has been programmed into the system, it picks it up. Same thing with word based. Probably they flag words like bomb, they flag words like shoot, gun, bullet. As soon as you mention any of those words, it gives a signal. All those are ways through which they acquire information through signals intelligence, interception of radio signals and phone signals. Now, there are so many other sources of intelligence that some are sub disciplines of some other sources that we have already treated. Time may not permit us to treat all extensively, but I would advise you go for further reading. You can look at measuring and signature intelligence, which is MISINT or MASINT, how you pronounce it. We have the TechInt, technical intelligence. We have CybInt and DININT. CybInt is cyber intelligence, TechInt is technical intelligence, cyber intelligence. We have digital networking intelligence. Another very important one is financial intelligence, rather, FININT. We have an agency that is taking care of that now. So if you're making fraudulent transactions and you believe the government is unaware, the NFIU, the EFCC, they're there to monitor all of that. The police also have, I think, the special fraud unit. They do all of those things. Now, when the government came up with BVN, bank verification number, a lot of people did not see the security aspect, the security perspective it came with. But it actually goes a long way in helping to track down some criminals, some fraudsters, because there is no transaction you do today through any banking system, be it the counter transaction or the electronic channels or the USSD transactions. They are all monitored, and you could have 10 bank accounts. They are all linked to that one bank verification number. So all those are functions of financial intelligence. So any form of intel you get about somebody's finance, or any intel you get through somebody's finance records, they're all financial intelligence. I leave you with all of this, and I would encourage you to read further. Online lectures would never be as elaborate or as extensive as classroom lectures. So we all have to adjust to the situation we found ourselves in. Read further. If you have any questions, like I said earlier, you could ask in the group chat, and if you're not one of my students, you have any concerns or questions, you can also ask in the comment section below. Don't also forget to subscribe to the departmental channel. It's Intelligence and Security Studies Department, Novena, University of Gome. I remain Baba Moto Abdulaziz. Thank you for taking your time to listen to this lecture. I tried as much as possible to reduce the size by limiting the video content of the lecture. So thank you very much. See you next class, and stay safe.